What brought you to writing? Was there something that, were you like a kid that liked to kind of do creative writing? What did you, was it comic books? Like, I don't know, I'm just curious, like there's always there's like an entree point for like a person to kind of want to put pen or fingers to keyboard growing up.
Well, since this is Asian A.V Club, I'll say that I was a math and science student.
Nice.
And I think any creative writing wasn't necessarily, I don't think anyone was checking for it in my childhood. You know, it was more something that I guess I privately was indulging in, and whether it was journaling or I think when I was a teen, I used to like write short stories and stuff like that. But it was never, again, it was nothing people were looking for in me. So I think maybe if it had been, you know, encouraged, I might have been more open about it early, you know. But maybe not. Maybe like I enjoyed that it was sort of an escape for me, and it was something I had privately.
So what's the kind of crossing point for you to then kind of put yourself out there to, I mean, you know, how did that even happen? If it was something private, how did it kind of eventually grow into a career?
Um, very slowly. I think I just really hit a wall with other things. And then I kind of looked at myself and said, this is what I enjoy doing. You know, this is what feels rewarding. So I think after I hit a number of walls trying other things in life, I, uh, I started writing screenplays mostly to myself. And then huh, eventually I plucked up the courage to start showing it to friends and stuff like that. And I don't know. At every level, there's just like there's a very small step or very small iteration of and a very low stakes bar to jump over. But it was kind of the thing I kept coming back to, uh, even as I was doing other things.
To then get your job as a staff writer for something like Dave, and then eventually to work on Beef and the, you know, and so forth. It's just um, what I found quite interesting is that, you know, obviously you get the work experience, but like throughout these jobs also you're like collecting collaborators or kind of people that like, you know, can you talk a little bit about maybe even not knowing, but like as every job you kind of like take on, there are more and more maybe secret mentors or like just kind of people that eventually play a bigger part in your life, whether you even understood that that was going to be the relationship moving forward, but kind of how it maybe eventually led to you making this film. I mean, like, obviously you pulled a lot of favors going into this, and these are probably people that you already knew. And I'm just curious, can you talk a little bit about this kind of slow build of like your creative people, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, getting into a room, it's like if I can do anything, it's soak up knowledge from people. So being in a room, it's like getting thrown in the deep end of, you know, professional TV writing. And so much of that is social behavior. So much of it is like, how do you act when you're around a group of seven other sensitive, creative types, you know? And I think, yeah, if anything, I have like gone through the process of assimilation over and over again in my life. And I kind of, I feel like I thrive off of meeting new kinds of people and figuring out how to communicate with them. So much of like TV work is about that. It's about sort of how do you learn what someone else thinks is interesting and what they think is funny, and how can you serve up an idea that serves someone else's agenda? You'll have to have learned what their agenda is, learn what their sense of humor is. So a lot of it is reading people.
How did that kind of translate when you had to become the lead, basically your own director, your own kind of, you know, like what was that like for you to like, you know, transfer that, all of the things that you watched other people do, and then like now you're the main honcho of a project like Lurker.
I mean, I think it was an extension of all that, and it was like I picked up all these little things along the way, but so much of it was, you know, how to break a story. And, you know, in TV, or at least the shows I worked on, there's a lot of fixing stuff on the fly or rewriting, reconfiguring stuff. And I think that gave me the freedom to be really flexible, which I had to be on like my own movie. I think the big difference was now I actually have to decide on what the idea is, or decide on a detail, or decide on between this and that. And that's not really your job when you're, you know, support writing staff. You're just like serving up options rather than just being decisive.
The one of the best things about, there's so many wonderful things about our movie, but like one of the best things I observed while watching was this group dynamic of male packs, but what I thought was interesting was that adding fame and power into that kind of group dynamic was fascinating. And I'm just curious, like kind of being in LA, whenever I go, and then, you know, I see these groups that exist, like even when you go to restaurants and stuff, and you're like, well, you know, and so I'm just curious, like, what was it about this kind of existence that was kind of the story that you wanted to tell? Because obviously you probably have a lot of ideas that you wanted to like put onto screenplay, you know, but what was this one that was kind of like the front runner in terms of all of your creative ideas?
I think I was drawn to it. You know, I was drawn to it in the same way that the characters in the movie are drawn to this like abstract, you know, intangible gravity of the pool of some, you know, some star or some cool idea or anything like that. I think I was, you know, fascinated by the intangibility of that. But then it's like it's like a substance that everyone agrees is there, but you can't see or touch.
One of the craziest things that I even noticed was that in a weird way, Oliver, who's this big star, it's almost like he's grooming people to kind of like bring him into the world to then kind of run overlord over them. And like that was a really nice aspect of it that I thought was really cool, that I've never really thought about in this until I saw your film. Can you talk a little bit about this kind of this thing that whether he understood it or not, he was kind of doing it with the people around him?
Well, I think that has a lot to do with what he's able to control and what he isn't. So I think due to the accessibility of a star like that, like a lot of those people are, you know, in a way at the mercy of the public, and they can't, you know, it's not cool to be famous anymore. You can't control the narrative around you. You don't have anonymity. You don't have privacy. So he sacrificed all that for the kinds of power that you see play out in the movie. Like he can tell all these other guys what to do, and he can pit them against each other, and he can puppeteer people that want to be close to the light, but the light is blinding him at all times, and because he feels sort of unable to control the sort of larger anything, you know, he focuses it on what he can.
Have you met many Matthews in your life? Like meaning these guys who come in quiet and then slowly weasel their way into, you know, a good place on the food chain in kind of these group dynamics. Were there people that you kind of saw, or like, or is this, you know, like I'm just curious if Matthews exist. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming in LA there's lots of Matthews, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cliche how many there are, and I think it's not even the more extreme cases that interest me so much as the way that quote unquote normal people engage in like a lot of these behaviors. Like I can relate to a lot of the instincts that he has, or I've been on the outside of something that I wanted to be a part of before. I've been in a group of people that I don't want to get kicked out of, you know? So I think I was more interested not in the extreme case, even in the way that it becomes extreme in the movie, but I was hoping to use that as a tool to kind of get people into that subjectivity and maybe reflect a little bit on like their own groups of friends or their own access, and make people think about where, on what valence they exist, or like, sometimes you are the outsider, sometimes you're the insider, and it just depends on how you look at things.
What I thought was really fascinating is that I saw somewhere that music wasn't really the focus until kind of the last minute of making this film. And then, of course, you bring in, Kenny Beats was already going to do your score, but to have him like kind of write all these songs. It's so crazy because when I hear these songs, they sound very 2025 right now. And it's very, I don't know, it's like, I can't wait to get the soundtrack. And I'm just curious, like, what has that been like to, not only create a movie, but also be part of the creation of something that like, will have kind of a potentially cultural kind of effect in terms of like having this music kind of be part of your underlying existence in a film like yours.
Well, I mean, what you're saying is very flattering. It would be nice if, these songs ended up having a life of their own. To me, that would just make me more proud of the movie. And I don't know, I think you do often hear after people watch the movie, they're like, I need that song.
Yeah.
And I'm happy because it services the story, and anything else is sort of like a pleasant surprise, but it all feels like it's just an extension of this universe.
There are so many firsts while you made this film, and can you talk about what you've learned, kind of like post, if you're able to like look back at like this like what this whole experience right now, like what has that been like for you to kind of go through what you have?
I mean, it was such a blast. It was so much more fun than writing. It kind of makes me feel like I don't know, I wish I tried it earlier. And it makes me want to encourage people who are, consider themselves writers to consider directing as an extension of that. I think there were a lot of mistakes that I didn't have to make, because, and there were a lot of things that I didn't do wrong because I didn't know about them. So there were so many people helping me, and again, if you can surround yourself with people who do know what they're doing, then it'll look like you do too.
Because it's Asian A.V Club, I also ask everybody, I'm like, do your parents know what you do? And like, what is the Asian kind of like response to all of this? Have they seen your film? And what, what kind of experience, like what has that been like to kind of see what you've been going through their eyes?
Now they know what I do.
Finally.
I'll put it that way. And, I think it wasn't necessarily something that they could have imagined for me, but I think they've come all the way around to it, and they're like floored. I think there's probably some, it's such a crazy thing for me to say that I wanted to do, especially to an immigrant, you want to do what? But now it's all like my mom can't stop talking about this shit to her friends and stuff like that. It's like, it's also like once you're in the New York Times or something, like it's easy for the elders to get hip to what you're doing. But I definitely had to figure it out on my own.
Well, congratulations! This film's awesome, and congratulations on finally the aunties knowing what you do. And it's like it's a good thumbs up on that aspect. Thank you. Really lovely chatting with you. Actually, thank you.
I love this. Thank you.